Innovation within Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, is a complex issue often viewed with great caution due to its potential to corrupt established doctrine and cause schism. The term for this, like bid'ah in Islam, or heresy and schism in Christianity and Judaism, signifies a departure from divinely revealed and accepted tradition. Theological and doctrinal dangers. Innovation poses a fundamental threat by suggesting that the original revelation is incomplete or flawed. This can lead to the following: corruption of core beliefs. All three faiths are built on the idea of a perfect and final divine message. Innovation can be seen as an attempt to improve upon this, which is considered a form of theological arrogance and a denial of the faith's original perfection. For example, in Islam, the concept of bid'ah, religious innovation, is condemned as it is believed to contradict the perfected religion revealed to Prophet Muhammad. Heresy. This is a key danger in Christianity and Judaism, where new interpretations that deny or contradict a core tenet of the faith are labeled as such. Early Christian history is defined by its struggle against heresies like Arianism, which questioned the divinity of Jesus Christ. In Judaism, movements that strayed from rabbinic law were often considered heretical, as seen in the divergence of Samaritanism. Fragmentation and schism. Innovation is a primary driver of division within religious communities, leading to the formation of new sects and denominations. Schism, a formal and deliberate break from the unity of a religious body. The Protestant Reformation, a major schism in Christianity, originated from theological innovations introduced by figures like Martin Luther and John Calvin, leading to the creation of countless new churches. Similarly, the early history of Islam saw the emergence of major schisms, such as the Sunni-Shia split, rooted in disputes over leadership and religious authority. Creation of rival factions. When new ideas are introduced, they often create competing groups that accuse each other of being in error. This can lead to internal strife, a breakdown of community, and a weakening of the faith's collective identity. Perceived arrogance and neglect of tradition. Introducing innovation can be seen as an act of hubris that dismisses the wisdom of past generations and divine revelation itself. Slandering the original message. Innovation implies that the original prophets or messengers did not fully convey the divine message, or that their teachings are no longer sufficient for the modern age. This is considered a grave offense in all three faiths, as it questions the completeness of the divine revelation. Abandonment of established practice. A focus on new practices can lead to the neglect of traditional rituals and observances. Over time, this can erode the spiritual foundation of the faith, as believers become disconnected from the practices that have sustained their communities for centuries. Islam safeguards against the dangers of innovation known as bid'ah through a robust and multi-layered system centered on divine revelation and the example of the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH. The core principle is that the religion was perfected by God during the Prophet's lifetime, so any new addition to its core tenets or rituals is a deviation. Here's how Islam protects against innovation. 1. The Quran as the ultimate source. The Quran, which Muslims believe to be the direct word of God, is the first and foremost safeguard. A key verse states, "This day I have perfected for you your religion, and completed my favor upon you, and have approved for you Islam as your religion." Quran 5-3. This verse is a foundational argument against bid'ah, as it asserts that the religion is already complete. Any attempt to add to it is, therefore, seen as an implicit claim that God's work was incomplete, which is a form of blasphemy. 2. The Sunnah and Hadith of the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH. The sayings, actions, and approvals of the Prophet Muhammad, collectively known as the Sunnah and documented in the Hadith, are the second primary source of Islamic law. The Prophet himself gave clear warnings against innovation. Whoever innovates something in this matter of ours that is not part of it will have it rejected. Bukhari and Muslim. Beware of newly invented matters, for every new matter is an innovation, and every innovation is a misguidance. Abu Dawood and Al-Albani. These sayings are central to the Islamic jurisprudence that rejects religious innovation. The Prophet's life and the practices of the first generations of Muslims, the Sahaba or companions, are considered the perfect model to be followed. 3. The role of the ulama, scholars. Islamic scholars, or ulama, play a critical role in preserving the religion from innovation. Their responsibilities include jurisprudence, fiqh. Scholars use the principles of Islamic law to determine what is permissible, halal, and what is forbidden, haram. They meticulously analyze new issues and practices to ensure they do not contradict the Quran and Sunnah. Issuing fatwas. When new questions or practices arise, scholars issue legal rulings, fatwas, to guide the Muslim community. These rulings often explicitly condemn practices deemed to be bid'ah. Education and dissemination. Scholars teach the authentic sources of Islam to the public, raising awareness about the dangers of innovation and explaining why certain practices are rejected. They are seen as the inheritors of the prophetic knowledge, entrusted with protecting the faith from misguidance. 4. Categorization of bid'ah. While the Prophet ﷺ warned against all religious innovation, some scholars have attempted to distinguish between different types of innovation. This has led to some disagreement within the Muslim community. Bid'ah in worship. This is generally considered the most dangerous form of innovation. It refers to adding to or changing acts of worship that were specifically prescribed by God and His Messenger, such as creating a new form of prayer or fasting on days not designated in the Sunnah. This type of bid'ah is almost universally condemned as misguidance. Bid'ah in worldly matters. This refers to new developments in non-religious affairs, such as technology, science, or social organization. This is generally considered permissible, as long as it does not contradict Islamic principles. The development of religious institutions, like schools and mosques for example, is seen as a beneficial innovation, bid'ah hasana, in this context. However, some stricter interpretations reject this distinction, arguing that all innovation is impermissible. 5. Emphasis on following the righteous predecessors. Muslims are encouraged to follow the path of the Salaf as-Salihin, the righteous predecessors, particularly the first 3 generations of Muslims. This is based on the belief that they were the closest to the Prophet's example and therefore understood the religion in its purest form. Following their example acts as a strong barrier against the adoption of later innovations. In summary, Islam's defense against innovation is rooted in its foundational texts, the clear warnings of its prophet, and the institutional role of its scholars. This system aims to maintain the purity and integrity of the original message, preventing the theological corruption and fragmentation that have afflicted other faiths throughout history. The statement that the Prophet Muhammad is the last and final prophet and the Quran is the final revelation is a central and defining tenet of Islam. This belief system provides a unique framework for understanding and safeguarding against the dangers of innovation, which are seen as a serious threat to the integrity of the faith. When considering the dangers of innovation in Abrahamic faiths through this Islamic lens, the following points are crucial. 1. The dangers of innovation for Islam itself. The Islamic concept of bid'ah, religious innovation, is directly linked to the finality of the Prophet and the Quran. Undermining the finality of the message, the Quran states, "This day I have perfected for you your religion, and completed my favor upon you, and have approved for you Islam as your religion." Quran 5-3. This verse is a powerful declaration that the religion is complete and requires no additions. Any attempt to introduce new religious practices or beliefs is, therefore, seen as an implicit and arrogant claim that God's final revelation was insufficient or flawed. This directly contradicts the core belief in Muhammad as the seal of the prophets. Deviation from the perfect example. The life of the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, as documented in the Sunnah and Hadith, is considered the perfect model for Muslims. His clear warnings against bid'ah, such as, "Every innovation is a misguidance, and every misguidance is in the hellfire," establish a strict standard. Innovations are seen as a rejection of this perfect model, leading believers away from the path laid out by God and His Messenger. Fragmentation and division. Innovation in Islam is a primary cause of sectarian division. Historically, every major schism and the formation of divergent sects has been rooted in theological innovations or new interpretations that deviated from mainstream belief. The Sunni-Shia split, for instance, began with a disagreement over succession, but over time, theological and jurisprudential differences, including innovative practices, contributed to the deep divide. 2. The dangers of innovation in other Abrahamic faiths, as viewed by Islam. From an Islamic perspective, the dangers of innovation are not just a problem for Islam, but explain the theological state of Judaism and Christianity. Human alteration of divine revelation. Islamic theology holds that the original revelations given to prophets like Moses and Jesus were pure and from God. However, over time, these revelations were subject to human alteration, misinterpretation, and innovation. The belief that the Torah and Gospel were corrupted or changed is a fundamental tenet of Islam. The need for a final prophet. The role of Prophet Muhammad as the final prophet is seen as necessary precisely because previous religious traditions had failed to preserve their divine messages from human innovation. Muhammad's mission was to restore the pure, unadulterated monotheism of Abraham and to deliver a final, complete, and protected revelation, the Quran, that would be free from such corruption. The dangers of religious authority without prophetic guidance. In both Judaism and Christianity, religious authority figures such as rabbis, scholars, and councils played a key role in developing doctrine and practice after the time of the original prophets. From an Islamic standpoint, this is a form of innovation. Without a prophet to receive direct divine guidance, these human-led innovations eventually led to theological concepts that Islam views as deviations, such as the Christian doctrine of the Trinity or certain rabbinic laws not found in the original Torah. In summary, the Islamic perspective on religious innovation is inextricably linked to the finality of its prophet and its sacred text. The concept of bid'ah is not merely a legalistic term, but a theological principle designed to prevent the historical processes of corruption and fragmentation that are believed to have affected other Abrahamic faiths. For a Muslim, the ultimate safeguard against the dangers of innovation is to adhere strictly to the Quran and the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad, as they are seen as the final and perfect sources of divine truth.